Welcome to another Fantasy Goodfellows video where we talk about the top 30 running back rankings for week 3. Richard, you ready?
Let's go.
The Fantasy Goodfellows.
Boom, boom, boom. Rolling on the field.
The Fantasy Goodfellows. All right, before we get started on this week's rankings, Richard, tell me how you did last week.
Well, last week, if we take out Alvin Kamara, who didn't play, we hit on 22 of 29 running backs.
Boom, boom, boom.
It's a big week for us. We surprisingly missed on Dalvin Cook, James Conner, Cordarrelle Patterson, Rashad Penny, Chase Edmonds, Devin Singletary, and Melvin Gordon. But that was it.
All right, before we get started on this week's rankings, let me just explain what you should expect in this video. Richard's going to give his rankings, and then we're going to use our stat machine to present some cooler stats, but also hold Richard accountable for each ranking. And hopefully this conversation, you'll be able to see some stats and also hear his ideas on why he put him in that ranking. All right, Richard, line them up.
Number 1, we have Jonathan Taylor, who will be home against Kansas City. Jonathan Taylor had a week 2 dud, but he's still the best running back in football. He's got Kansas City. No matter how they did against the LA Chargers, I still think they're suspect. And I think Jonathan Taylor will have a good week. And number 2, Nick Chubb will be home against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's defense is a good defense, but that offense is terrible. So there's going to be plenty of opportunities for Cleveland. And Nick Chubb, all he did was score 3 touchdowns in week 2.
With Nick Chubb, I think the reason why he's so high is because he scored 3 touchdowns. I don't expect that every week.
Nick Chubb is a stud. I say it, every week. He has to compete with Kareem Hunt. That's the first problem. Second problem, Jacoby Brissett is his quarterback. But just like last year, when Baker Mayfield was his quarterback, and was being stifled by that, it didn't matter. Nick Chubb, that offense loves to run. They love to give the ball to the running backs. Chubb isn't going to score 3 touchdowns every week, but he is a stud, and he's hot right now. And number 3, Austin Eckler, who will be home against Jacksonville. This is a good matchup, and Austin Eckler is starting to pick it up, had a better week 2. I think it's just the trend will continue. I believe the Chargers are going to have Herbert get rid of the ball much quicker now that he has that rib injury. So he's going to be throwing a lot of short stuff to Austin Eckler. And number 4, we have Christian McCaffrey, who will be home against New Orleans. Christian McCaffrey showed us some things in week 2. Didn't score, but he's starting to show us that burst and that ability. I'm still dubious about him, right? Because he's brittle, but so far we have to go with what we've seen, and it's good. Just like our number 5 guy, Saquon Barkley, will be home against Dallas. Obviously, his week 2 wasn't as good as his week 1, and Barkley will have a dud here and there. But right now, we got to give those 2-0 Giants, we got to give them some credit. And Saquon Barkley is definitely the big dog on that offense. And number 6, Derrick Henry will be home against Las Vegas. Derrick Henry, not a good week 2, but against Buffalo. Now he plays a much weaker defense, and I expect Derrick Henry to rebound. At the very least, he's going to get plenty of touches, plenty of usage. And number 7, Joe Mixon at the Jets. Good matchup. The 0-2 Bengals are going to want to light it up. This is going to be a big week for that whole offense. And number 8, DeAndre Swift at Minnesota. We have to start believing in those Lions, at least in that offense. They're putting up a lot of points, and DeAndre Swift has looked very, very good. And number 9, we have Javonte Williams, who will be home against San Francisco. Tough matchup. San Francisco, tough defense, but Javonte Williams has looked like a stud. Week 1, week 2, yes, he shares with Melvin Gordon, but Javonte Williams is starting to look like the guy in that backfield and is getting a lot of touches. And number 10, Dalvin Cook, who will be home against Detroit. Dalvin Cook just gave us a dud. He was outside the top 30 in week 2. We definitely expect the Vikings to rebound. He's too good, and that Detroit defense is not very good. At number 11, Aaron Jones at Tampa Bay. Tough defensive matchup, but Aaron Jones is showing us how explosive he is. Good week 2. I expect the trend to continue. Of course, he's sharing with A.J. Dillon. Tough defense, so we got him a little lower. At number 12, James Robinson, who will be at the L.A. Chargers. James Robinson looking good. He's the number 1 back in Jacksonville. Travis Etienne getting very little usage compared to James Robinson. And Trevor Lawrence is looking capable in year 2.
Hold on. Real quick about James Robinson. The first 2 weeks, he's in the top 10. You got him just outside the top 10. What holds him back from getting him back into the top 10?
It's just he scored touchdowns. You can't expect the touchdowns every week. And that is the issue. And there's Travis Etienne. But he is looking good, and he's right outside the top 10. And number 13, Najee Harris, who will be at Cleveland. We ranked him a little lower in week 2. Not sure about his foot injury. He's still not 100%, but he got the usage and he made things happen. At number 14, Clyde Edwards-Helaire at Indianapolis. Edwards-Helaire broke off a 50-something yard run in week 2. He's getting usage. He's getting red zone touches. We like it so far, and we know that Kansas City offense is tremendous. And number 15, Leonard Fournette, home against Green Bay. Leonard had a dud of a week 2. We'll see. If you're a Fournette owner, you have to worry, just as if you're a Brady owner. That offense has not looked great. Granted, they've had a lot of injuries. Godwin missed week 2. Julio Jones missed week 2. We will see what happens in week 3, but for now, I've downgraded both Brady and Fournette. At number 16, Miles Sanders at Washington. That Philadelphia offense looked unbelievable in week 2. And if the trend continues where they're blowing people out and then have to just run out the clock at the end, obviously it's going to bode well for Miles Sanders. And that might be the case again against the lowly Commanders. And number 17, David Montgomery, home against Houston. David Montgomery looked great on Sunday night. He makes things happen when he gets the ball. The problem here is Justin Fields is lost. Another week where he looked terrible. But Montgomery did not, and he's got a good matchup. And number 18, Antonio Gibson, home against Philadelphia. Some people might argue, that I should rank Gibson a little higher. But did you see Philadelphia on Monday night against the Vikings? Dalvin Cook didn't make the top 30. And number 19, Josh Jacobs at Tennessee. I continue to say it. Josh Jacobs is not the most explosive back, but he gets touches, he gets usage, he's consistently in the top 30. And number 20, Kareem Hunt, who will be home against Pittsburgh. Kareem Hunt was the guy in week 1. Nick Chubb was the guy in week 2. We don't know who the guy is going to be in week 3, but I think both will have success against a decent defense with an offense that can't move the ball, meaning Cleveland will possess the ball plenty. That's 21, James Conner, who will be home against the LA Rams. We mentioned it before with Conner. He is touchdown dependent. Didn't get a touchdown this week, was outside the top 30. Last year, all the touchdowns he scored was a little bit of an aberration. I don't expect it again this year. I think Conner is dropping, but for now, Kyler Murray, Arizona, they're going to have to put up a lot of points, and he can still benefit from some vulture touchdowns. At number 22, Cordarrelle Patterson at Seattle. Cordarrelle did not have a good week 2, but he is the number 1 guy in that offense, and Seattle is a good defensive matchup. At number 23, Ezekiel Elliott at the New York Giants. A good matchup. Cooper Rush looked competent, but Ezekiel Elliott definitely dropping. Pollard looked excellent. Actually, Pollard outscored him in week 2, but I think there will be a touchdown for Ezekiel Elliott in week 3. At number 24, Jeff Wilson Jr., who will be at Denver. Jeff Wilson had a decent week 2, taking the place of Elijah Mitchell. I expect that offense to continue to be run heavy and do well with Jimmy Garoppolo. And number 25, Darrell Henderson at Arizona. Yes, Darrell Henderson, not Cam Akers, is the guy with the Rams. He's getting the touches. Arizona is an ideal opponent. And number 26, A.J. Dillon at Tampa Bay. Tough defense, but Dillon is getting his share of the carries in Green Bay, and he's going to get the goal line carries. Expect Dillon to score. And number 27, Damien Harris will be home against Baltimore. That New England offense has its issues. The whole team has its issues. They're 0-2, but Damien Harris was easily in the top 30 in week 2. I think that trend will continue. He's getting touches. He's proving to be very efficient. And number 28, Tony Pollard at the New York Giants. It's a good matchup. He got a lot of touches in week 2. He made them count, scoring a touchdown. I think that trend will continue against the Giants. And number 29, Raheem the Dream Mostert will be home against Buffalo. In week 2, Mostert got way more touches than did Chase Edmonds. He might be the new number 1 in Miami. And we know that Dolphin offense, if you saw week 2 at Baltimore against a tough defense, they're going to put up points and they're going to move the ball against Buffalo. I'm not saying they're going to beat the Bills, but they're going to be able to put up points. And Mostert at 29 is a safe bet. And at number 30, we have Breece Hall, who will be home against Cincinnati. Breece Hall, the bright rookie, showing us signs of life in week 2. I think the trend will continue against a very questionable defense.
Let's just take a look at the rankings compared to some other rankings. And I just want to point out Javonte Williams, you got him at 9. Some other people have him at 26. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's probably because of San Francisco, the matchup. I believe in Javonte Williams. I think he's still going to do fine.
Okay. Leonard Fournette, some other rankings have him at 7. You got him at 15. What's going on there?
Yeah, that Tampa Bay offense, not looking good. Brady has not looked good. Say whatever you want. This might be the year he hit the wall. We will see. But I think definitely Leonard Fournette barely made the top 30 in week 2.
All right. And a couple, nobody ranked, but you got him ranked in your top 30. A.J. Dillon, Tony Pollard, Mostert, and Breece Hall.
Yeah,
they're in your top 30.
Yeah, you named my number 26, 28, 29, and 30 guys. So you're naming my bottom guys. I think there's going to be a lot of difference in opinion there. I went with a lot of the high upside guys.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on here and sharing the top 30 running back rankings for week 3.
My pleasure. Good luck to everyone.
Those fantasy good fellas.
Boom, boom, boom. Rolling on the field.
Those fantasy good fellas.